Chapter 2. Arise. Bethany, Judea, 31 A.D. I worry he will not last the night. Mary leaned over the sickly white form of her brother Lazarus, mopping his sweaty brow with cold wet rags. She looked to her sister Martha. It's been over a week since we called for his friend Jesus to come and help us. I can't imagine what is taking him so long, she said. Lazarus had been living with Mary and Martha in Bethany for some time. Now he lay dying on a reed mat on their mud floor, as they had tried to reduce his fever and save his life. Nothing seemed to work. He would not eat and was getting weaker and weaker by the hour. As evening cast its shadow over their small home, an old oil lamp, kept low to save money, showed the concerned faces of his sisters, weeping, still swabbing the sweat from his unconscious brow. Finally, the oil running low, they turned out the lamps and took their prayers into the darkness. Martha awoke first the following morning, as the early light filtered into their room. She found her brother peaceful, head slightly to one side and still. No breath moved him, and his body was cold. "Mary, Mary, wake up! He's gone!" Mary looked at Lazarus, then stood up, chanting, "Blessed are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe, the true judge." At the same time, she was ripping her nightshirt off in small pieces. Martha stood beside her, arm draped over her shoulders, comforting her, all the time whispering in her ear to soothe her. "It's all right, my little sister," she said. "It is out of our hands now. We must prepare his body for a proper burial. We must go and get sanctified water to cleanse him." Since Mary and Martha could not afford a casket, they wrapped Lazarus in a prayer shawl and a sheet and finally burial clothing, making his body ready to be taken to his tomb. Prayers and readings from the Torah were already being recited by friends outside his room. The tombstone to Lazarus's burial chamber would close him off from the living. As it was rolled back, Mary looked over to Martha, still choking up. "I wish Jesus had arrived in time to save our brother. I just don't understand what could have delayed him so long. Jesus loved Lazarus like his own brother." Some days after Lazarus had been put to rest, young ragamuffins were out on the streets playing. Whenever a traveler was spotted approaching town, it was a cause of great excitement and curiosity for the villagers, as not only did visitors bring fresh news, but quite often treats for the village young. As the youngsters spotted a stranger approaching, they ran to see who it was. From afar, they recognized Jesus. By now, everyone in town had heard about the sisters' disappointment that Jesus had not arrived in time to save Lazarus. Consequently, the children ran back into town shouting excitedly, "Jesus is coming! Jesus is coming! He has arrived!" In no time, a large crowd assembled, since Jesus was already quite a celebrity. The villagers would have come to see him anyway, but with the added attraction of his absence when Lazarus was dying, people ran to see what would happen. The ragamuffins led the crowd back out of town to greet Jesus, and as the people approached him, he asked, "Where is Lazarus?" The children could not restrain their excitement and shouted in unison, "He's dead. The village put him to rest 4 days ago." Jesus ignored them, continuing his walk into the village. As he reached the center, Mary and Martha approached, still grieving, the sorrow showing up on their tear-stained faces and in their swollen eyes. They walked up to Jesus, everybody watching. Mary tried to hide her feelings about his late arrival. "He's gone. You missed him. He was very ill, but we couldn't save him." Jesus looked at her with great empathy. "I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die." He looked at the surprised sisters, smiling and thinking that they had no idea what he planned. "Take me to his tomb," he demanded loudly. Once at the tomb, the crowd was even more surprised when Jesus ordered imperiously, "Roll back the stone covering the entrance." Jesus waited a little while for some men to come forward and roll back the stone covering the tomb. The stone had been placed in a little depression to keep it locked in position, so it took quite an effort to start the stone rolling up the slight incline to a flatter surface. Eventually they had the stone rolled back, and Jesus turned to the opened entrance. Bowing his head, he said a silent prayer. Then out loud he said, "Lazarus, come forth." The crowd was too surprised to do anything. They probably thought Jesus was mad. Everybody stared, amazed at his audacity, and all was quiet as they waited for whatever was going to happen next. Everybody was surprised, except Jesus, of course, when a faint shuffling sound came from the cave. Then more unidentifiable noises of movement. The first people to see dropped to their knees in supplication, while those further back in the crowd waited in anticipation. When they too were able to see, they fell to the ground in worship as well. Lazarus was walking out, still wrapped in his grave clothes. Martha and Mary looked at Lazarus, then at Jesus with total astonishment. They too dropped to their knees, bending over, their heads almost touching the ground as they gave thanks. Jesus walked off while they were all too awestruck to do or say anything other than pray.